Commander Hyun stood in the ancient archive room, dust particles dancing in the pale blue light. His 6 fingers traced over the old data tablet he had found buried under centuries of forgotten records. The writing on it made no sense to most people in the galaxy, but Hyun had spent 20 years studying dead languages. This one was different. This one spoke of humans. Everyone knew the stories about humans. They were tales told to young ones before sleep, warnings about warriors who never gave up, who fought with a fury that burned like dying stars. But nobody believed humans were real. They were just myths like the great void serpents or the singing planets. Old stories, nothing more. Hyun had always wondered if there was truth hidden in those stories. The legends were too detailed, too consistent across different alien species. How could 12 different races all tell similar stories about the same mythical people if those people never existed? The tablet in his hands might hold the answer. It contained star maps, combat records, and something that made his heart beat faster. A distress beacon frequency, one that was still active. He had tried to present his findings to the Galactic Coalition Science Council 3 weeks ago. They had laughed at him. Ambassador Sora, a young Quillian diplomat with bright green scales, had been the kindest. She had smiled and said, "Commander Hyun, you are a good soldier. But you chase shadows. Humans are stories. Nothing more." The others had been harsher. They called him obsessed. They said he wasted resources on fairy tales. The head counselor had even suggested he take a medical leave to clear his mind. Now Hyun sat alone in the archive, demoted to records duty. His military career was probably over, but he could not stop thinking about that beacon signal. It came from the Forbidden Zone, a region of space that no ship had entered in 800 years. The zone was surrounded by unstable wormholes and space storms that tore apart anything that got too close. Some said an entire civilization had died there long ago. What if that civilization had been human? His communication device beeped. Hyun checked the message and felt his blood turn cold. The Dravix Empire had attacked again. 3 more coalition worlds had gone dark in the past week. The Dravix were not like the peaceful species in the coalition. They believed in conquest and taking what they wanted by force. Their new weapons cut through coalition shields like they were made of paper. The coalition military was losing badly. Entire fleets had been destroyed. Billions of refugees fled toward the center of coalition space, hoping the core worlds would be safe. But Hyun knew the truth. If the Dravix kept winning at this rate, there would be no safe worlds left. He looked back at the ancient tablet. The human legend spoke of warriors who protected the weak. Warriors who answered calls for help no matter the cost. Warriors who turned impossible battles into victories through sheer determination. Just stories, everyone said. But what if they were wrong? Hyun made a decision that would probably end what remained of his career. He copied the beacon frequency onto his personal device and left the archive. He walked through the empty halls of the military station, his footsteps echoing in the silence. Most of the soldiers had been sent to the front lines. Only support staff remained. He reached the communications center. The officer on duty was a young Velkari named Kes, who looked half asleep at his station. "Perfect." "Kes, I need to send a priority message," Hyun said. The young officer yawned. "Sure, Commander. What authorization code?" Hyun gave him a fake code, one he had memorized from his days in active command. It would work once, maybe twice before someone noticed. But once would be enough. "Strange frequency," Kes said, looking at his screen. "That is pointing toward the Forbidden Zone." "Nothing is out there, sir." "I know," Hyun said quietly. "Send it anyway." Kes shrugged and pressed the buttons. The message went out, riding on carrier waves that would penetrate deep into the Forbidden Zone. It was simple, translated into every language Hyun could find in the old human records. "Help us, please, we are dying. If you can hear this, we need you." The message would repeat for 72 hours unless someone shut it down. By then, Hyun would probably be arrested for unauthorized use of military communications. But he did not care anymore. The galaxy was ending. What did his career matter? He thanked Kes and walked back to his quarters. Through the window, he could see ships jumping to hyperspace, heading toward the latest battle. So many ships, all of them rushing toward what might be their final fight. That night, Hyun could not sleep. He kept thinking about the humans in the old stories. They were always described the same way. Not tall or strong compared to other races. Not the smartest or the fastest, but stubborn, impossibly stubborn. When humans decided to fight for something, the legend said they never stopped. Not when they were tired. Not when they were hurt. Not even when they were dying. One story stuck in his mind. It told of a human commander named Tay, who had held a space station against an enemy fleet for 6 days with only one damaged ship. Every time the enemy thought they had won, Tay found a new way to fight back, using debris as weapons, ramming enemy ships, even sending his crew in spacesuits to cut power lines on enemy vessels. The enemy had finally retreated, not because they lost, but because they were terrified of what else this crazy human might do. Just a story, Hyun reminded himself. But oh, how he wished it was real. 3 days passed. The Draviks pushed deeper into Coalition space. 2 more worlds fell. The Coalition Council held emergency meetings every hour, but they had no answers. Their best scientists could not figure out how to counter the Draviks' weapons. Their best generals could not slow the enemy advance. Hyun was officially suspended from duty, pending investigation for his unauthorized transmission. He did not care. He spent his time in his small quarters, listening to the news reports of one defeat after another. On the 4th day, something changed. Long-range sensors detected a massive energy spike in the Forbidden Zone. The spatial storms that had raged there for centuries suddenly collapsed, and something was coming through. Hyun ran to the observation deck, his heart pounding. Other off-duty personnel were already there, staring at the screens in confusion and fear. "What is that?" someone whispered. The sensors showed dozens of ships. No, hundreds of ships. They had designs nobody recognized, sleek and angular with strange markings on their hulls. The ships moved with precision through the empty space where the storms had been. Then the communication channels crackled to life. Every screen in the station showed the same image. A being that looked almost like a Valkyrie, but not quite. Shorter, with only 2 arms and 2 legs, hair on its head. Strange, expressive eyes. The being spoke in perfect Coalition standard language. "This is Admiral June of the United Earthship Wanderer. We received your distress call. We are here to help." The room fell silent. Someone dropped their data pad. It clattered on the floor, the only sound in the shocked quiet. "Humans," Hyun breathed. "The humans are real." On the screen, Admiral June smiled. It was not a cruel smile or a mocking smile. It was the smile of someone who had just found family they thought was lost forever. "We have been gone a long time," June continued. "We have much to talk about. But first, we understand you have an enemy problem. Perhaps we can help with that." Around the galaxy, on every Coalition world, people stopped what they were doing to watch the broadcast. The myths and legends they had grown up with were standing in front of them, offering help in their darkest hour. Ambassador Sora watched from her office, her green scales pale with shock. She thought about how she had dismissed Commander Hyun's research, how she had called humans just stories. The stories, it turned out, were very real, and they had just come home. 3 weeks had passed since the humans arrived, and the galaxy was still trying to understand what it meant. The Draviks Empire, however, did not care about understanding. They only cared about conquering. 4 more Coalition worlds had fallen to the Draviks forces. Each defeat brought millions of refugees fleeing toward the core systems. The Coalition military was broken, scattered across dozens of systems, unable to mount any real defense. Fear spread like poison through every remaining world. On Quilios Prime, Ambassador Sora stood on a balcony overlooking the capital city. Below her, the streets were packed with refugees from other worlds. They had nowhere else to go. The Draviks fleet would arrive within days, maybe hours. Everyone knew what would happen then. The Draviks did not take prisoners or show mercy. Her communication device buzzed. It was an emergency alert. The Draviks fleet had been spotted entering the system. They would reach the planet in 6 hours. Sora felt her legs weaken. 6 hours. That was all the time left. The Coalition defense fleet had only 30 ships here, most of them damaged from previous battles. The Draviks were bringing 300. Then something strange happened. The air itself seemed to ripple and tear. Right above the city, space opened up like someone had cut a hole in reality. The sight was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Ships began to emerge from the opening. Not 300, not even 100. Just 20 vessels, but they moved with a confidence that the Coalition ships lacked. They were human ships. Sora's device buzzed again. This time it was a broadcast on all channels. The face of Admiral June appeared on every screen in the city. People of Quilios Prime, this is Admiral June of the human fleet. We know you are afraid. We know you think this is the end. But I promise you this. No one will hurt you today. No one will take your homes. We did not travel 800 years to let bullies destroy innocent lives. Hold on just a little longer. Help is here. The broadcast ended. Sora stared at her screen, unsure whether to feel hope or greater fear. 20 ships against 300. The humans were brave, she would give them that. But bravery alone could not win battles. In orbit above the planet, Commander Hyun stood on the bridge of a human vessel called the Wanderer. The humans had invited him aboard as an observer, probably because he was the one who had sent the distress call. The bridge was different from coalition ships. Everything was more compact, more efficient. The crew moved with quick precision, no wasted motion. Admiral, Dravik's fleet entering weapons range, reported a human officer at the tactical station. Thank you, Lieutenant Jin, Admiral June said calmly. He looked at Hyun. Commander, you should probably hold on to something. This might get rough. What is your plan? Hyun asked. You are outnumbered 15-1, June smiled. It was the same smile from the first broadcast, friendly but with something dangerous behind it. We are not trying to outnumber them, Commander. We are trying to outthink them. The Dravik's fleet came into view on the screens. Massive warships, each one twice the size of the largest coalition vessel. Their weapons had torn through every defense the coalition had tried. What could 20 human ships do against such power? All ships, this is June. Execute pattern Delta 7. Show them what we learned in the dark. The human ships suddenly split apart, moving in directions that made no tactical sense. They were diving toward the planet, using its gravity to slingshot themselves at impossible angles. Coalition doctrine said to never get that close to a planet during combat. It was too risky, but humans apparently did not care about risk. The Dravik's fleet fired. Their weapons lit up space like angry stars. But the human ships were not where the Dravik's expected them to be. They twisted and turned, using maneuvers that should have torn them apart. Some passed so close to Dravik's vessels that their shields touched. Fire, June said quietly. The human weapons were different. They did not fire big, powerful blasts like Dravik's guns. Instead, they fired thousands of smaller shots, overwhelming the enemy shields through sheer volume. It was like watching rain become a flood. 3 Dravik ships exploded in the first minute, 5 more in the second minute. The Dravik's fleet, so confident just moments ago, suddenly found itself in chaos. They are adapting, reported Jin from the tactical station. Enemy is changing shield frequency. Of course they are, June said. Helm, bring us about. Time for Plan B. Sir, we do not have a Plan B, the helmsman said. June grinned. Then we better make one up fast. Down on Quilios Prime, Sora watched the battle on public screens throughout the city. The humans were fighting like nothing she had ever seen. They did not follow any known tactics. They just kept moving, kept shooting, kept attacking from angles that should not have been possible. But the numbers were still bad. 20 ships, no matter how skilled, could not beat 300. Slowly, the Dravik's were recovering from their surprise. They began to work together, focusing their fire on one human ship at a time. Sora saw one human vessel take a direct hit. Its shields failed. Another hit tore through its hull. The ship was dying, but instead of retreating, the damaged ship accelerated. It flew straight at the nearest Dravik's warship, gaining speed. At the last second, small pods shot out from the human ship. Escape pods, Sora realized. The crew was evacuating. The human ship crashed into the Dravik's warship at full speed. Both vessels exploded in a ball of fire that lit up the night sky of Quilios Prime. They sacrificed their ship, someone near Sora whispered. To take out one enemy vessel. No, Sora said, understanding flooding through her. They sacrificed their ship to save their crew. Look. On the screen, other human ships were already moving to recover the escape pods. Even in the middle of battle, they took time to save their people. The fight continued for 3 more hours. The humans lost 5 more ships, but each ship they lost took 3 or 4 Dravik's vessels with it. The humans fought with a determination that scared even Sora. They did not fight to win glory or territory. They fought like every single life on the planet below was their own family. Finally, something broke in the Dravik's fleet. Maybe it was seeing how humans refused to give up. Maybe it was losing 70 ships to just 20. Whatever the reason, the Dravik's commander ordered a retreat. The remaining Dravix vessels jumped to hyperspace, leaving behind debris and defeat. On the Wanderer, the bridge crew did not celebrate. They looked tired, sad for the friends they had lost. Admiral June stood and straightened his uniform. Get recovery teams on those escape pods. I want everyone home. Then contact the planet. Tell them they are safe. Hyun watched the Admiral walk away, heading toward the medical bay where wounded crew members were being treated. This human leader cared more about his people than victory. That night, Sora met with Admiral June in person on the planet's surface. He came with one other person, a woman introduced as Dr. Mina, their chief medical officer. Mina had spent the past 6 hours helping treat wounded coalition soldiers and refugees, working until she could barely stand. Why did you come? Sora asked June directly. Your people were safe behind the Forbidden Zone. You could have stayed hidden. June looked at the city around them, at the people who were starting to believe they might survive. 800 years ago, our sun started dying. We tried to warn the galaxy, tried to ask for help, but politics and fear made people ignore us. By the time they believed us, it was too late. The spatial storms trapped us behind the barrier. We could not leave and no one could reach us. He turned to look at Sora. We spent 8 centuries trapped, watching our sun die, building ships and habitats as fast as we could to save our people. We lost Earth, our homeworld. We lost billions who could not be evacuated in time, all because when we called for help, no one answered. So you came because we called for help, Sora said softly. We came because no one should feel that alone, Mina said. Her voice was gentle but firm. We came because family helps family, and the coalition, whether they remember us or not, is our family. Sora felt something tight in her chest. Shame, she realized. The coalition had forgotten the humans. Worse, they had let humans become myths, stories told to children, and when those myths returned, they came not with anger for being abandoned, but with help for those in need. The Dravix will not stop, Sora said. You saw their fleet. That was just a small part of their military. They have hundreds of worlds producing weapons. June nodded. I know. That is why tomorrow I am meeting with the Coalition Council. We need to talk about what comes next. What does come next? Sora asked. Admiral June looked up at the stars, at the vast galaxy that had forgotten his people. When he spoke, his voice was quiet but filled with steel. War, he said simply. We are going to war. And we are going to teach the Dravix why legends are born in the first place. The Dravix warlord Vex watched the tactical display with growing anger. His forces had been pushed back from Quilios Prime by a handful of human ships. Humans. The species that was supposed to be extinct or made up. Yet here they were, real and dangerous. Send a message to these humans, Vex ordered. Tell them that one battle means nothing. We have 100 worlds making weapons. We have millions of soldiers. They have myths and desperation. We will crush them. His communications officer nodded and sent the message across all frequencies, making sure the entire coalition would hear it. At Terminus Gate, the last major defensive point before the coalition's core worlds, Admiral June read the message and showed it to General Wu, the commander of all human ground forces. He is not wrong, Wu said. His face was weathered and hard, the face of someone who had fought too many battles. We have maybe 200 ships total. They have thousands. Our population is still recovering from the barrier years. We are outnumbered in every way. Numbers are not everything, June replied. No, Wu agreed, but they help. The coalition had gathered its remaining forces at Terminus Gate. 800 ships, though most were damaged from previous battles. The crews were exhausted, supplies were low, and morale was worse. They knew the Dravix were coming. They knew what would happen if Terminus Gate fell. Every core world, every civilian population would be defenseless. Commander Hyun stood in the Coalition Command Center, watching the preparations. Beside him, Ambassador Sora was silent. She had spent the past week learning about human history, about what they had endured behind the barrier. The more she learned, the more ashamed she felt. They lost their homeworld, she said quietly to Hyun. They watched Earth die because no one would help them evacuate, and now they are here, risking everything to save us. Hyun nodded. The old records I found tell a different story than the myths. Humans were not feared because they were violent. They were feared because they believed everyone deserved freedom and equality. Some coalition leaders 800 years ago did not like that message. They wanted to keep their power, their control. So when the humans needed help, those leaders made sure no help came. We abandoned them, Sora whispered. Yes. And they came back anyway. The alarm sounded. Long-range sensors detected the Dravix fleet entering the system. 3,000 ships. It was the largest fleet anyone had ever seen. Next to that armada, the Coalition's 800 ships looked tiny. On the human flagship Wanderer, now repaired from the battle at Quilios Prime, Admiral June addressed his crew. Today we fight outnumbered, he said. Today we face impossible odds. Some of you are wondering if we can win. I will be honest with you. I do not know. But I know this. Behind us are billions of innocent people who deserve to live. Who deserve to be free? Our ancestors fled Earth not because they were cowards, but because they wanted to preserve life. Today we honor them by protecting life. No matter the cost, the crew was silent. Then slowly they began to tap their consoles in unison. It was an old human tradition, a drumbeat before battle. The sound echoed through the ship. In space, the Dravix fleet arrived like a dark cloud. Their ships blotted out the stars. They moved in perfect formation, confident in their overwhelming numbers. The battle began badly for the Coalition. Within the first hour, 200 Coalition ships were destroyed. The Dravix weapons were too powerful, their tactics too refined. This was not a fight. It was a slaughter. Then the human fleet engaged. Colonel Hana led the first strike. She commanded a squadron of human fighters, small craft that most species considered too risky to use in major battles. But Hana and her pilots flew them like extensions of their own bodies. All wings, this is Reaper, she called over the communications, her call sign, earned from dozens of battles during the barrier years. Remember your training. Fast, aggressive, unpredictable. Make them fear the small ships. Her squadron dove into the Dravix formation. The fighters were too small and fast for the big Dravix guns to target effectively. They tore through the enemy fleet like angry insects, striking at weak points, destroying sensor arrays, targeting weapon systems. One of Hana's fighters took a hit. The ship was crippled, engines failing. But instead of trying to limp away, the pilot aimed at a Dravix cruiser's bridge and hit the accelerator. At the last second, the pilot ejected. The fighter crashed into the bridge, killing the enemy command crew. Good kill, pilot, Hana said calmly. Recovery teams, pick up that pod. Let's bring our people home. It was a pattern that repeated across the battlefield. Human pilots did not fear death, but they were not reckless. They calculated risks, took daring chances, and always tried to save each other. In the middle of the fleet battle, Major Sung led his Marine teams on boarding actions. Human Marines were legendary even before the barrier, known for fighting in close quarters where their adaptability and aggression were most effective. Sung's team cut through the hull of a Dravix battleship. Inside, they moved through corridors with practiced ease. The Dravix were bigger, stronger, but the humans were faster, smarter. They used the ship's own layout against the defenders, turning every corner into a potential ambush. Contact front, one Marine called out. Suppress and flank, Sung ordered. 2 Marines laid down covering fire while 3 others moved around through a maintenance tunnel. They came up behind the Dravix soldiers, ending the fight in seconds. This happened on 12 different Dravix ships. The enemy crews found themselves fighting not just outside their vessels, but inside as well. Fear began to spread through the Dravix fleet. These humans were everywhere, like ghosts that could not be stopped. On the Wanderer's bridge, Hyun watched the battle unfold. He could barely believe what he was seeing. The humans were outnumbered, outgunned, but they refused to fight like normal military forces. They were creative, unpredictable, and absolutely relentless. Admiral, the Wanderer is taking heavy damage, reported Lieutenant Jin from Tactical. Shields at 20%. Hull breaches on decks 7 through 9. June studied the tactical display. The Dravix flagship was at the center of their formation, coordinating the entire battle. If that ship fell, the enemy fleet would lose cohesion. Calculate a collision course with the Dravix flagship, June ordered. The bridge went silent. Hyun felt his blood turn cold. Sir? The helmsman asked. You heard me. All hands, this is the Admiral. Evacuate all non-essential personnel to escape pods. Essential crew, prepare for collision protocols. Admiral, you cannot, Hyun protested. You will die. June looked at him with calm eyes. Ships can be rebuilt, Commander. But our people cannot. Fear is a weapon. Let's use it. Over the next 10 minutes, escape pods launched from the Wanderer. Most of the crew evacuated. Only June and 30 volunteers remained. just enough to keep the ship flying. The Wanderer accelerated toward the Dravix flagship. Enemy guns hammered the human ship, tearing it apart piece by piece. Alarms screamed. Fires broke out on every deck. But the Wanderer kept coming. At the last second, June and his crew entered a heavily armored safe room deep in the ship. The Wanderer crashed into the Dravix flagship's bridge at tremendous speed. Both ships exploded in a massive fireball, but June had timed it perfectly. The safe room, now a reinforced pod, was thrown clear of the explosion. Other human ships immediately moved to recover it. The Dravix fleet, seeing their flagship destroyed, fell into chaos. Without central coordination, their perfect formations collapsed. Individual ships started making their own decisions, some fighting, some trying to retreat. The coalition fleet, inspired by human bravery, pressed their attack. Ships that had been ready to run now fought with renewed courage. The battle turned into a grinding melee. Ships fighting at close range, collisions and explosions lighting up the dark. Hours passed. The fighting was brutal. The coalition lost 600 ships. Humanity lost 83, over a third of their entire fleet. But the Dravix had lost more. Over 1,500 ships destroyed or disabled. Finally, the Dravix fleet broke. The remaining ships jumped to hyperspace, retreating in disorder. On what remained of the Wanderer's safe room pod, now recovered and brought aboard another human ship, Admiral June was pulled out by medical teams. He was battered, bloodied, but alive. General Wu met him in the recovery bay. "You crazy fool," Wu said, but his eyes showed respect. "You could have died." "But I did not," June replied, wincing as a medic treated his burns. "And now the Dravix know. Humans do not quit. Humans do not run. We fight until we win, or until there is nothing left to fight with." News of the victory at Terminus Gate spread across the galaxy. For the first time since the war started, the Coalition had won. Not just survived, but actually won. In the Coalition Council chambers, Counselor Nari, who had doubted humans were even real weeks ago, now stood before Admiral June. "You saved us," Nari said simply. "What do you need? Supplies, ships? Just name it." June looked at the gathered council members. "We need all of that. But more importantly, we need you to understand something. This was just one battle. The Dravix Empire is vast. They will rebuild, come back stronger. If we want to truly win, we cannot just defend. We have to take the fight to them." "You mean invade Dravix space?" Nari asked, shocked. 6 months into the war, the galaxy learned that humans did not fight like anyone expected. The Coalition Military Command had drawn up traditional battle plans. They wanted to slowly push back against Dravix territory, taking systems one at a time, building fortifications, securing supply lines. It was logical, safe, and would take decades. General Wu looked at their plans and threw them out. "We do not have decades," he told the shocked coalition generals. "Every day we waste, the Dravix enslave more people and build more weapons. We need to hit them fast, hard, and where they do not expect it." "That is reckless," one Velkari general protested. "No," Wu replied. "That is human." The first liberated world was called Drava 7, a planet where the Dravix mined rare minerals using slave labor. The Coalition expected Wu to bring a massive fleet and lay siege to the heavily defended planet. Instead, he brought only 3 transport ships and 500 Marines. "That is not enough," Ambassador Sora protested. She had been assigned as liaison between the Coalition and human forces. "The garrison there has 10,000 troops." "I know," Wu said with a slight smile. "But they think we will attack from orbit." "We are going to attack from inside." The 3 human ships did not approach Drava 7 directly. Instead, they dropped teams of Marines in stealth pods days before the main assault. These teams landed in remote areas and made contact with the slave populations. Major Sung led one of these teams. He and his Marines did not dress in military armor. They wore simple clothes and brought food, medicine, and weapons. The slaves, members of a species called the Quilian, stared at the humans with suspicious eyes. They had been told that humans were myths designed to scare children. "We are very real," Sung said through a translator, "and we are here to help you be free. But we cannot do it alone. We need you to fight with us." An old Quilian slave named Dal stepped forward. "Why should we trust you? Everyone promises freedom. No one delivers it." Sung removed his jacket and showed the scars on his arms. "I was born on a ship in the barrier. My parents never saw a planet until they were old. We spent 800 years trapped, fighting every day just to survive. We know what it is like to be prisoners. And we know that freedom is worth any price. Dal looked at the weapons the humans offered. If we fight and lose, the Draviks will kill us all. If you do not fight, Sung said gently, you will die as slaves. At least this way you die free. Over the next 3 days, Sung and the other human teams organized a resistance network across the planet. They taught the slaves how to use the weapons, how to sabotage Dravik's equipment, how to strike and fade into the shadows. When the day of the uprising came, the Dravik's garrison was not ready. Slaves they thought were broken and defeated suddenly became warriors. Power stations exploded. Communication towers fell. Armories were raided. The planet descended into chaos. Then General Wu arrived with his 3 ships. But instead of landing Marines to fight, he landed engineers and doctors. They secured the spaceport and immediately began treating wounded civilians, both Quelian slaves and even injured Dravik soldiers who surrendered. What are you doing? A Dravik soldier asked as a human medic bandaged his wounds. I am your enemy. The medic, a young woman named Dr. Rin, looked at him with tired eyes. Right now you are a patient. We can be enemies again later after you are healed. Word of this spread across the planet. Dravik soldiers who had been taught that surrender meant death realized the humans treated prisoners fairly. By the end of the day, half the Dravik's garrison had laid down their weapons. This pattern repeated across 12 different Draviks-controlled worlds. Human forces would infiltrate, organize resistance, then support local uprisings. They liberated planets not by destroying them, but by freeing the people on them. In orbit above the liberated world of Drava 7, Commander Hyun watched the operation with amazement. He was now serving as a strategic advisor to the human fleet, having been fully cleared of any wrongdoing for his unauthorized beacon message. Your people fight with heart, he said to Admiral June. Most species rely on technology or numbers. Humans rely on something harder to define. Will, June said. We rely on will. The decision to keep fighting even when everything says you should quit. Every human is taught from childhood about the barrier years. How we survived when our sun died, when space itself trapped us, when everything was hopeless. We survived because we refused to give up. That same stubbornness works in war, too. Meanwhile, Commander Yuna worked on a different kind of warfare. She led the Human Intelligence Division, and her specialty was psychological operations. Yuna hacked into Dravik's communication networks and began broadcasting the truth about the war. She showed footage of human Marines treating wounded Dravik soldiers. She showed liberated slaves returning to their families. She showed Dravik's officers living in luxury while their troops died in pointless battles. The Dravik's empire is built on lies, Yuna explained to Sora. Their soldiers think they fight for glory and honor. We just need to show them they fight for the greed of a few leaders. The broadcasts worked. Dravik's units began to question their orders. Some even defected, bringing their ships to human-controlled space and asking for asylum. One defector, a Dravik's commander named Krell, met with General Wu personally. Why do you treat us with kindness? Krell asked. We killed your people. We destroyed your ships. Because you are not our enemy, Wu said. Your leaders are. You are just soldiers following orders like soldiers everywhere. When you realize those orders are wrong, you have a choice. You made the right choice. As the war continued, something unexpected happened. Coalition soldiers started acting like humans. They became more aggressive, more creative, more willing to take risks. It was not that they copied human tactics. Rather, the humans reminded them of something they had forgotten. Lieutenant Jin, the young human pilot, often flew with a Velkari navigator named Kess. Together, they created a new fighting style that combined human aggression with Velkari precision. Their squadron, called the Bridge Builders, became famous throughout both fleets. We are not so different, Kess said to Jin after one successful mission. Your people survived the barrier. My people survived the Great Drought 3 centuries ago. We both know what it means to fight for survival. Jin nodded. Maybe that is what the galaxy forgot. All the member species of the Coalition have survival stories. They just got comfortable. Forgot they were once warriors too. Ambassador Sora was documenting everything for Coalition records. She had started a project to write the true history of humanity, based on old records that Hyun had found. The more she researched, the angrier she became. The Coalition did not just forget humans, she told Hyun one evening. Certain leaders deliberately erased them from history. Humans proposed radical ideas 800 years ago: true democracy, equal rights for all species, limits on corporate power. The rich and powerful did not like those ideas, so when humans needed help during the solar crisis, those same leaders made sure no help came. The humans were too dangerous, Hyun said bitterly. Not because they were violent, but because they believed everyone deserved freedom. And now they have come back, Sora said, teaching the galaxy those same dangerous ideas all over again. The turning point came when Commander Yuna located the Dravik's homeworld. Instead of planning an attack, she proposed something radical. We blockade the planet peacefully, she explained to the War Council. No shooting, no invasion. We just surround it and broadcast the truth. Show the Dravik's people what their empire really is. Show them the war crimes, the lies, the corruption. Let them decide what to do. Many coalition leaders thought this was foolish, but Admiral June supported the plan. The human fleet, supported by coalition ships, jumped to the Dravik's homeworld. They formed a blockade but did not fire a single shot. Instead, they broadcast everything. Years of recorded atrocities committed by the Dravik's military. Evidence of how the ruling class lived in luxury while common soldiers died. Testimony from defectors about the lies they had been told. The Dravik's people watched and grew angry. Not at the humans, but at their own leaders. Within a week, revolution began on the Dravik's homeworld. The people rose up against the corrupt government. The military split, with many units siding with the rebellion. The empire began to collapse from within, but not everyone surrendered. The Dravik's warlord Vex, the one who had started the war, escaped with a fleet of loyalist ships. He had one goal left. If he could not rule the galaxy, he would destroy Earth survivors out of spite. He set course for the Forbidden Zone, where most of humanity's civilian population still lived behind the slowly destabilizing barrier. When Admiral June learned of this, his face went pale. How long until he reaches the barrier? He asked. 12 hours, Lieutenant Jin reported. And how long until we can safely shut down the barrier without killing everyone inside? 48 hours minimum, replied the chief engineer. June closed his eyes. Behind the barrier were 15 billion humans. Civilians, children, the elderly. People who had survived 800 years of hardship and were so close to being free. Send word to all human ships, June said quietly. The space around the barrier was filled with ships. 200 vessels, a mix of human and coalition forces, faced the approaching Dravik's fleet. Behind them, the barrier flickered and pulsed, growing more unstable by the hour. On the other side, 15 billion humans waited, unaware that death was rushing toward them. Admiral June stood on the bridge of his new flagship, a vessel hurriedly repaired and renamed the Second Wanderer. Around him, his crew worked in focused silence. They knew the odds. 900 enemy ships against 200 defenders. The math was brutal. All ships report ready, Admiral, Lieutenant Jin said from the tactical station. June opened a channel to the entire fleet. His face appeared on every screen, human and alien alike. Today we face impossible odds, he said. His voice was calm, steady. Behind us are 15 billion innocent people. Our families, our friends, our future. The Dravik's warlord wants to kill them because he cannot accept defeat. He thinks if he cannot rule the galaxy, he will at least have revenge. June paused, looking directly into the camera. He is wrong. We are going to stop him, not because we are stronger, not because we have better weapons, but because some things matter more than living. Freedom matters. Family matters. Doing what is right matters. If we die here today, we die knowing we stood between evil and the innocent. There is no better death than that. The channel closed. Around the fleet, thousands of beings from dozens of species prepared for battle. Humans worked alongside Velkari, Quilian, and even former Dravik soldiers who had defected. They were no longer separate species. They were a fleet, a family united by shared purpose. Commander Hyun was aboard the Second Wanderer as well. He had insisted on being here, despite June suggesting he stay somewhere safer. You sent the beacon that brought us home, June had said. You do not need to die with us. You answered the call, Hyun replied simply. How can I do less? Ambassador Sora was there too, along with General Wu, Colonel Hana, Major Sung, Commander Yuna, and Dr. Mina. All the humans who had become heroes during the war. All of them choosing to stand and fight. The Dravik's fleet arrived like a storm. 900 warships, weapons armed, shields at maximum. Warlord Vex broadcast a message to the defenders. "Move aside." His voice echoed across all channels. "You cannot win. I offer you this one chance to live. Retreat now or die with the humans." No one moved. No ship broke formation. Vex's laugh was cold and bitter. "So be it. You will all become legends. Dead legends." The battle began. The Dravix fleet charged forward in a massive wedge formation. Their weapons fired in coordinated volleys, overwhelming the defenders' shields. Within the first 5 minutes, 10 coalition ships were destroyed. "All fighters launch," Colonel Hanna ordered. Her squadron, the Reapers, streaked out of the hangar bays. They were joined by hundreds of other fighters, a swarm of small craft diving into the massive enemy fleet. "Remember your training," Hanna called to her pilots. "Fast, aggressive, and watch each other's backs. Make every shot count." The fighters tore into the Dravix formation, targeting sensors and weapons. They were like tiny fish attacking a shark, but there were so many of them, and they were so determined. Dravix ships began to lose coordination as their targeting systems failed. On the second Wanderer, Commander Yuna was fighting her own battle. She had hacked into the Dravix communication network. "Broadcasting now," she said. Every Dravix ship suddenly received the same message. It showed recordings of Vex ordering his own retreating ships destroyed for cowardice. It showed him executing officers who questioned his commands. It showed him planning to abandon his own homeworld if the revolution succeeded. "Your warlord is a coward," Yuna's voice announced over Dravix channels. "He cares nothing for you. To him, you are just tools to be used and thrown away. You do not have to die for him. You can choose honor instead." 3 Dravix ships immediately broke formation and retreated. Then 5 more. The warlord's fleet was beginning to fracture, but it was not enough. 890 ships still pressed the attack. The defenders were being pushed back, taking horrible losses. 20 ships destroyed, 30-40. General Wu led the desperate defense of the barrier itself. Any Dravix ship that got through the main battle line met his Marines in fierce close-range combat. They boarded enemy vessels, sabotaged their engines, did anything to stop them from reaching the barrier. "Sir, we cannot hold much longer," one of Wu's officers reported. Wu looked at the tactical display. The math was clear. They needed more time, but time was running out. Then something changed. The barrier began to pulse more rapidly. On the other side, human scientists had been working frantically to shut it down safely. Dr. Rin, the medic who had treated enemy soldiers on Drava 7, had joined the civilian science team. She had an idea. "We cannot shut down the barrier safely in 48 hours, she told the lead scientist. "But what if we do not shut it down? What if we collapse it in a controlled way? Use the energy release to create a pulse that will disable ships nearby?" "That could work," the scientist said slowly. "But the pulse would affect our ships too." "Only for a few minutes," Rin calculated. "And it would give the barrier enough time to fully collapse without killing anyone." She sent the plan to Admiral June. He read it quickly and understood immediately. If they did this, both fleets would be disabled for 5 minutes. The Dravix would not be able to attack the barrier during that time. But the defenders would not be able to stop the Dravix from regrouping afterward either, unless someone did something crazy during those 5 minutes. June made his decision. He ordered all ships to pull back to minimum safe distance from the barrier. The Dravix, thinking the defenders were retreating, charged forward eagerly. "Now," June ordered. The barrier collapsed. The energy release was spectacular, a wave of force that spread out in all directions. Every ship within range, human and Dravix alike, went dark. Engines failed. Weapons offline. Life support minimal, but June had prepared for this. He had hidden small assault shuttles on the dark side of nearby asteroids. These shuttles, powered down and undetectable, were not affected by the pulse. Each one carried a team of Marines led by Major Sung. "Go," June ordered. The shuttles activated and raced toward the disabled Dravix command ship. They cut through the hull and entered. Inside, the Dravix crew was helpless, their systems all offline. Sung's team moved through the corridors with practiced efficiency. They reached the bridge in 4 minutes. Warlord Vex stood there, trying to manually activate backup systems. He looked up as the human Marines entered, weapons raised. "You," he snarled. "You mythical monsters. You should have stayed forgotten." "We are not monsters," Sung said quietly. "We are just people protecting our home." He gestured to 2 Marines, who moved forward to restrain Vex. The warlord struggled, but it was over. 5 minutes after the pulse systems began coming back online. The Dravix fleet, now without their commander, received a broadcast from Sung standing on their command ship bridge. "Warlord Vex is captured," Sung announced. "The war is over. You have a choice now. Continue fighting for a cause that is already lost, or go home to your families. We are not your enemies. We never were. Your leaders were the enemy all along." One by one, Dravix ships began to stand down. Some retreated. Some surrendered. A few tried to continue fighting, but their own crew members stopped them. The Battle of the Barrier was over. Behind where the barrier had been, the first ships from the freed human population began to emerge. 15 billion people, finally able to see the galaxy again after 800 years. They saw the debris of battle, the damaged ships, the signs of terrible fighting. They also saw humans and aliens working together to rescue survivors. They saw former enemies helping each other repair ships. They saw Dr. Mina and her medical teams treating wounded from all sides without discrimination. One young human girl, born behind the barrier and seeing alien life for the first time, asked her mother, "Are those people our friends?" Her mother, looking at the coalition forces who had fought and died to protect humans they had never met, smiled through her tears. "Yes, baby, they are family." 5 years later, the galaxy had changed. The Dravix Empire no longer existed. In its place, dozens of free worlds governed themselves. Some former Dravix joined the coalition. Others chose independence. All of them were allowed to make that choice. The barrier was gone, replaced by a memorial station called Hope's Gate. It honored all who died in the battle, regardless of species. The names of heroes were carved in every language of the coalition. Commander Hyun, now Director Hyun, led the Human Studies Institute. His mission was to preserve the true history of humanity and make sure it was never forgotten again. Ambassador Sora published her book, When Myths Became Real, The Return of Humanity. It became required reading in schools across the coalition. In it, she wrote, "We called them myths because we were ashamed. We had abandoned them when they needed us. We let them become stories to hide our guilt. But myths do not die, they wait. And when the time is right, they return to remind us of what we should have been all along." The coalition adopted a new charter, based on human principles of freedom and equality. Every species had equal voice. Every world had the right to self-determination.